Hopefully you've come with some questions that you'd like to know a little bit more and some details on that. And so to open it up, I think you already know who Alan is since he's been introduced before. And so I'm just going to say a prayer and then turn it over to him and let you all start asking questions. Our Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful that you're the orchestrator of life. You're the giver of all good and perfect gifts. And we pray that your Spirit will quicken each and every one of us to learn, to grow, and be inspired to live more for you. That we would learn more of who you are because of our time here today. And we pray for answers to questions to inspire each of us to take another step with you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, I don't have any. You guys heard my story a little bit, and love to just hear what you guys would want to hear more about, or straighten me out on something, or feel free to. Yes, sir.
A little bit of loaded Alan Barnhart from Marketplace Chapel.
Sure, yeah.
One of the things I think that you shared your story, but what the tact would be, and I'd love to hear if you share more about how you set up Barnhart Crane Cares. How
Okay.
you actually proactively care for your people. One thing, have the leadership and alignment and doing things, but what you've actually set infrastructure-wise into the whole company to secure that culture.
Yeah, and the main thing we did is we got marketplace chaplains. That was the main, no, that was a significant thing. But we have about 1,400 employees, but most of them don't live in Memphis. They're scattered around the country. And when we were just in Memphis, we were sort of our own chaplains, and we were in people's lives and able to share our faith and communicate things to others. And I knew everybody's kids' names, back in the day. Well, now there's a whole bunch of people I don't even know their name. And so how do we get the things put in place that we want, where we want to help both our employees, our families, and the communities that we're part of. And so we developed a thing called Barnhart Cares, and there's a care group at each branch, or it's kind of new, so they're not all developed yet, but probably 30 of them are going. And so we have a series of programs that we do, things we do for our employees, like we'll send them to a marriage conference, or do financial counseling, or other kinds of counseling that we'll pay for, or there's a JH Ranch thing that we do called Outback, and and then we have marketplace chaplains. We have a thing called Co-Tribute, which is a way for people to designate certain amounts of the company's profits to specific local ministries, and each person can designate a little bit of that, and then they can also volunteer and get additional money to designate. So we're just trying to find a way, and then for them to reach beyond themselves, we want to have them have access to dollars that we can support local ministries. So if somebody wants to connect with a local ministry, if they're willing to go form the relationship, and if they're willing to go make sure that the ministry is doing good things, then we will provide the funding for that in each of the locations where we have people. And so we're trying to care for our people, care for our families, and also care for our communities through this thing called Barnhart Cares. And it's kind of a semi-new thing. For years we had it in our heart, but we had a real difficult time translating it to Iowa or to Washington State, and we realized that it needed to be local, and so we've localized it in each place where we have an operation. And the marketplace chaplain guys are usually on that care team and are part of that process, which has been a huge help to us. I definitely would encourage, marketplace chaplains is if you have a very small company and you can be your own chaplain and you feel comfortable doing that, that's probably the most effective way. But if you don't, if it gets beyond what you can do, to have some guys and gals that are coming along and touching your people on a regular basis, we've seen some real fruit from that. Yeah.
Is there any certain thing you look for when you go to spend your money. I know I find myself when I'd rather teach people how to fish than feed them fish all the time. So how do you go about finding, when you distribute your money, who is really going to use that money in the way it's going to be spent versus somebody that's just going to take it and squander it or not really be productive with it?
Sure. Yeah, and we have some principles that we go by, and some areas. Some of our principles about helping others would be never do something for someone that they can do for themselves. Only provide dollars for emergencies. If it's an organization that's making poverty more comfortable, but not bringing people out of poverty, we don't want to fund it. If it's something that is bringing people out of poverty, then we think that, and whether that's material poverty or spiritual poverty or whatever, then we want to fund that. We don't. There's a great book called "When Helping Hurts" that has been a guideline for us. That realizing that a lot of times providing money can do more harm than good. It's not just a waste of money. It can be actually a negative, both in the recipient's life and in the giver's life, as we start to develop a God complex and some of the elements of pride that come from being a giver, and some of the what I call lack of dignity that comes from being a receiver. I think distributing dollars needs to be done with care and with intentionality. I know there's people that are very strategic in their business in making money, and then when it comes to giving money, they say, "Well, I'm just going to trust God that He's going to take care of that." And I'd say, "Why don't you just do that in your business too?" We're supposed to use our minds, and we're supposed to use the mind that God has given us to figure out that, and sometimes the Spirit leads us to do something and we just do it, even though it doesn't fit our mind necessarily. But for the most part, the way that we live our life is we follow the basic concepts we see in Scripture, and the things generally we try to make sense. And I think that funding of ministry is the same way. We spend a lot of time doing the due diligence. When we're going to invest in a ministry, it's almost like we're going to buy a company. It's the same kind of, we buy a lot of companies, and we go in and we do due diligence when we buy the company, and we look and ask a lot of questions, and we're looking for what's the caliber of the leadership? Do they have a coherent strategy in a market? Do they have a track record? For ministries, it's the same. Is it godly leadership? Do they have a coherent strategy? Do they have a track record? And if they do, let's invest a little bit and see if there's a return on that investment. I'm using business terms, but I think that's sort of how we're kind of business people, so that's how we think about it. So we're looking for a return, not a financial return on our investment, but a real return of life change on our investment. And then we invest more and continue the relationship. So it's that may sound like it takes the joy out of it, but I think it does not. I think it takes the frustration out of it. As we do things spontaneously, that can lead to a disillusionment, as things won't go like you think they should go, and you can pretty soon say, "I don't like this. I've been bid on this too many times. I don't like it." Funding ministry is not. It's not easy, and the other thing I'd say is it's really not about us. It's not what are you passionate about, or what brings you joy, or what makes you feel good. That's really not what we're after. What we're after is distributing God's resources in a way that furthers God's kingdom. And a lot of times we're doing that with people that we don't speak their language. We'll never meet them. We will never see physically what they do. But we think that we're strategically investing in the kingdom by doing that. So it's not about us. Don't take the barometer of how does that make me feel. But is this something that, and by the way, we've made a ton of mistakes. We've done some things that cause more harm than good. And we've learned from those mistakes, but don't be afraid of making mistakes. I mean, venture into this thing, and you won't do it right the first time, but do it intentionally. Do it on purpose rather than just wing it. It's the same way that you are strategic in your living your life, be strategic in your funding. So, good question. Yeah.
Alan, what has been the most difficult decision of making the workplace for you?
Most difficult decision, I think, when I think of the hard things, and we've had, you see the kind of work we do, we've had some bad days where things went wrong, and but the things that are most difficult to me are interpersonal. I think some of the hardest decisions are when there's a person who is a very good person who is not competent to do the work that we have them doing, and we have to rearrange that in a way that doesn't necessarily fit their opinion. And so there's times when in the management of people we have to make changes that are not popular, and I don't like that. I mean, it's hard, and I think those are some of the hardest things, or some of the interpersonal conflicts that come. We have a lot of people that want to join our business because of the ministry stuff that we're doing. They think, this is so cool, man, I want to be part of this. But a lot of those people don't want to work hard, frankly. I mean, they don't want to. We're trying to be the best company in our industry. We're pushing hard. We want to be great at what we do. And we want people that have that work ethic and want to do that. And it's not for everybody. Some people don't think that way, don't want to do that. But they're loving the fact that there's ministry involved, and there's times we have to say, "I'm sorry, this is not for you. We're hardworking guys. We don't see work as a negative thing. We're not workaholics, and we don't work crazy hours or anything. But we're serious about what we do, and we want people that will be students of our industry and will, that aren't saying, 'Thank God it's Friday' and 'Oh crud, it's Monday.' And we want people that like coming to work and like being part of what we're doing. And if they don't, then sometimes we have to make hard decisions. And I say those have been the hardest for me. Is the money stuff's pretty easy. The people stuff is tough. Yeah.
Through your growth from 10 people to 1,400, you and your brother or family that are involved, has there ever been any burnout phase or any type of doubt, if you will, or
Yeah.
gone through your mind at all through the success?
I have not experienced it. My brother, to a degree, I think has. He actually took a year off a couple years ago, and he's back working again. But so I think he's 60 years old, and I think he's maybe winding down a little bit more than I am at this point. But I have not. I mean, for me, it's been. I enjoy coming to work. It's not. This is not some sacrificial thing that takes tremendous discipline for me to be willing to do it. I like it. I like what I do, and so it's not. I don't feel burned out. I mean, I'm 58, and I'm still working every day. 90% of my time is spent at work, and probably 10% or so is spent trying to figure out the ministry stuff. But no, I haven't had any burnout times.
I'm not a businessman.
Okay.
I've been in ministry one way or another my whole life, but I'm interested in some of the terms that you've used about investing in the kingdom.
Yeah.
I know some people use that word interchangeably with church or evangelism or that sort of thing. And my question is, you seem to have thought about that a lot, and I hear it personally in everything you're saying. But I wonder if you could speak about your vision for the kingdom of God.
Great.
You're investing in the world.
Sure.
You're investing all over the world.
All right. Well, five primary buckets for us: evangelism, church planting, discipleship, leadership development, and ministry to the poorest of the poor, care for the poorest of the poor. So those are our five buckets. We have 4 areas of the world that we have teams that focus on those areas. So I'm on the India team, and we focus on primarily North India. And there's 10 of us that are part of that team, and we travel there and we develop a portfolio of organizations that we want to invest in India. But it would be in those 5 buckets that I just mentioned. We have another team that's focused on West Africa, another team that's focused on the Middle East, North Africa, and then one team that's on Southeast Asia. And there are other parts of the world where there's tremendous needs. There's tremendous needs in our city. But we just feel like God called us to focus on a few hard areas in the world where the Christian infrastructure is much less developed, and invest there, because there's just a lot of people that will not invest in young life in Louisville or in Memphis, but that won't invest in India. And so we default to sending 95% of our funding goes internationally to places like that. And it's all overtly Christian, all looking at life change around those 5 buckets. So.
Are the funds that you work out of now, are they just like you sold the company and you've grown with using those monies, or do you still get money from the company that you sold to keep your ministries going?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. When we gave away the company, so we didn't receive any money from that, but we try to do all of our giving each year as we make money. And so about 50% of the profits of the company each year go to ministry, and about 50% go to growing the business. And so we're a very capital intensive business, so we buy equipment's expensive, and so so 50% of our profits go to ministry, in which was.
You still got monies coming in.
Yeah.
You keep your monies going out.
So the company makes money every year, and then we try to give it away as quickly as we can. We don't have a pool of money somewhere to give from. We want to get the money out working as quickly as we can. And so we don't have a foundation or something like that. We just try to make money and then invest it as quickly as we can in strategic ministries. So.
I can relate a whole lot to what you were talking about. I think your kids would probably be interested to me. I hear a lot of people say, I wish I could win the lottery. I would make my kids' life easier. I would pay off their house. I would pay off this. And I thought, Paul's biggest thing was the struggles. We should look forward to those.
Yes.
We go pay off our kids' house. We go buy them this and that. We cheated them out of something.
Absolutely.
We
Pain.
cheated them out of those struggles. I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. Pain is a good thing. Stress is a good thing. I mean, you try to relieve people of all their pain, and it just hurts them. It weakens them.
It's almost something like Satan.
Yeah.
He would set us up for failure.
You make them fragile. Humans are pretty non-fragile, and you make them fragile when you try to take away all their pain or their. It just seems like a flawed parenting strategy to me, and it's not that we're trying to withhold something from our kids that because we're trying to give it to God. It's not that at all. It's we want to leave our kids a rich inheritance. The Bible talks about that, but it's an inheritance of faith and of work ethic back in the day, what did they leave their kids? They didn't leave them 401ks. They left them land. So then they got to go work their butt off to make a living, and that's what we're trying to do that for our kids. Give them the tools so that they can go work hard and make their way in this world and produce, and that's going to give them so much more dignity than just having a bunch of, being able to sit back and do nothing. From our welfare system to Native American, on and on. When you just try to take away the pain, you end up really hurting people by doing that. And we don't want to do that to our kids. So it's not something we're trying to withhold from them because we're mean but it's something we're intentionally trying to do for them.
Just good parents.
Yeah.
One day I went deeper than that. I thought, I guess it would be no different than me going to school with my granddaughter and doing her homework for her in the first grade.
so that she doesn't have to struggle with it. Why don't you help her out and you'll cripple her? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Shoot. Yes, sir.
I don't necessarily have a question, but something you said in there kind of hit me. My wife and I started a high school. I'm 53 years old. We started a high school ministry 10 years ago.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Awesome.
And it's morphed into a church. We just renovated an old Kroger store, and now we're almost 2 years into it. And I mean, talking about the kids and it just kind of morphed into what I'm saying. We have more millennials than, we have about 400 people come to our church, and probably 70% of them are millennials right now.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that, but it's been a struggle. And what you said in there was that sometimes you gotta, and sometimes I hold our finances at a, I'm holding on so tight because when you have the kids, tithes and offerings are not what you have when you have an adult. So I'm holding on to this budget and all this stuff, but what you said in there today kind of just almost freaked me a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Rich, you gotta let go just a little bit.
Yeah.
You gotta trust me just a little bit. So I just want to say thank you for that. God spoke to me in there.
That's cool. Yes, sir.
Sir, well, I come from South India, but you said you focus on North India.
Yeah.
You like to focus on South India too?
Well, we do some things in South India. I'm going to be going to Mumbai in a couple months, and we do some in South India. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Spurgeon.
Okay.
We are medical missionaries, me and my wife.
Wonderful.
And we do free clinics, and we actually trying to build a church and the free clinic there. Actually from a family property.
Wonderful.
But how do you work in India, sir? Right now in North India, you said it's a really tough position, and they don't encourage FCRA.
Yes,
you know that.
yes.
They kicked out the Compassion International and all.
Yes.
And how do you manage to get into these projects there to support them financially and also in a spiritual areas? How do you manage? Do you have a strategy?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's we've been doing it for a long time. Been in India for over 20 years, and so we know a lot of people there, and we invest in the people that we have gotten to know over the years. India is there's sort of been their new president Modi has had a real chilling effect on ministries, and especially in international funds coming into India. Compassion International was kicked out of there. They were sending millions and lots of millions to care for orphans there, and they got kicked out. So there's a restriction. They don't want money coming into India to fund evangelism or fund the things that we fund. And so it's not totally shut off yet. And so we're still able, there's still plenty of avenues to bring the dollars in, but it's becoming more tricky to do that. And so we're looking at some strategies of trying to have some businesses within India or some other conduits to be able to bring funds in. But more than anything, there's a lot of Christian infrastructure that's developed in India now. And so the generosity movement in India is something we're trying to support and encourage. I think that over time, the economy of India is developing so well that they'll be able to fund themselves, and they won't need Western funds forever, and that's much more healthy. One of the things we say about funding is every time you cross a barrier, it becomes more difficult and more risky. And so, to give something to your children or to your neighbor, you can understand that pretty easily, but when you start going to the inner city, it's more tricky. And then when you cross geopolitical, other country or other whole culture, it becomes more tricky. And so it takes more work. And so we think it would be much better if everything in India was funded in India. But
do you set up some businesses that can produce finances for them in the long run? Like if you say in next 10 years, I think we will not have any FCRs anymore.
it could happen.
Like that.
It could happen, yeah. So we're encouraging guys Indian guys that are in business, encouraging them, and for them to develop their business.
Not many Christian business people, and then
Yeah, it's
build a temple there. Someone can write $1 million check there.
Yeah.
Build a temple.
Yeah.
Build a Christian school, Christian campus. Still, there's a lot of persecution. I understand where you come from, but we definitely need support from people like you.
One of the dynamics in India that's interesting that would, I think, can inform us too. Within the Christian world in India, being a pastor is seen as a very noble thing. Being a doctor, that's okay. That's pretty good. Being a business guy, you're a cheat and you're a bad guy. The Christians kind of look with suspect on a Christian guy who's in business, and we shouldn't. They're using their skills and gifts and doing what they do. Now, I mean, everybody needs to be held to account, but the Christian business guys I hear, when you're in a Christian circle and you say, "What do you do?" and you say, "I'm a doctor," that's cool. But if you say, "I'm in business," there's like, "Oh, you're one of those guys." And we need to be esteeming business guys in our culture. We need to esteem our teachers, and we need to esteem our military, and we need to esteem our pastors, and we need to esteem our guys that work with their hands, and we need to esteem business people that are doing good business. I wish that we had commissioning services, not just for pastors and missionaries, but for business guys to go out in the business field, or for doctors to go out in their world. So I think we need to esteem each other in what we're doing, and not encourage each of us to be using our skills and our gifts for the kingdom in a whole variety of different ways. The hand, the foot, the different body parts working together. So, thanks. Yeah.
In our business, we've got job sites that are sometimes hundreds or thousands of miles away from home office, where we have a corporate chaplain, where we
Cool.
educate in the workplace. How did you overcome the challenges of distance from your job sites, similar to job sites that are away from the home base? How did you overcome those challenges of promoting faith in the workplace at the job site?
We haven't done it great real well. I mean, we've tried some things, but we've tried to send a couple of guys to a job that are strong believers with a little bit of a, working in the crew, but with a little bit of a mission for it. But I'd say, I think I could learn from you. I don't think we've done it very well. It's not easy. Wind farms, we put up a lot of wind farms, and that takes months of guys being out of town, and there's been some success there, but there's been, I'd say, a lot of times we have not been able to meaningfully have our culture infused in that situation. So it's hard.
You mentioned earlier that you give money away as fast as you get it.
Yeah.
Historically, people have established foundations. Can you explain your reasoning behind why not a foundation? Why you give it away?
A couple reasons. I think it's the first one's practical. I think investing in people has a higher return than investing in the stock market. If you can affect life change, and that life changes other lives, there's a multiplication effect. And so the sooner you can start that, the more quickly you get that doubling and that exponential effect. And the other area I think is more motivational. I think to me it's more motivational to start affecting life change now than it would be to say, I'm going to save something up. It's easier to say I'm going to save it up for the future, because then you don't have to make all the decisions today. But I think it keeps me coming to work more, that the dollars that are being generated today, next year will be out working. So I don't think foundations are bad. And if we ever sold our business, it would generate so much money that we wouldn't be able to send it out immediately. It would take 10 years probably to distribute that. And there are arguments for perpetuating that for a long time. But there's also a lot of foundations that started with amazingly good principles, and the people that made that money would roll over in their grave if they knew what was happening with their money. And so Ron Ballou has a little quip: do your giving while you're living, so you know where it's going. And I think that there's also a motivational element to doing that. So I think that's, yeah.
I'll be heading back to India in a couple of months.
All right. What part?
North India.
North India. Okay.
Yeah. Being involved in missions for the last 20 years.
Wonderful.
What are some of the lessons you learned?
From India.
Yeah, basically like investing in missions, global
I think we've learned it's complicated. I think we've learned there's a fair amount of exaggeration. So you have to sort through things. I think we've learned that there are amazing, godly people that have very few resources, and buying a bike can make a big difference. And people that are willing, shortly after they come to Christ, are willing to pay a tremendous price for the gospel. And I've been in a room with guys and said, how many of you guys have been beaten for your faith? And most of the guys in the room raised their hand. And you think, wow, I've not been. That's not been my experience. So I think it's a beautiful, difficult place, and I think relationships. This is everywhere, but in India in particular, maybe the relationships really matter, and it's going to be messy, I guess I would say. So, yeah.
So you mentioned here that you're a part of First Evangelical in Memphis.
Yeah.
What does your company's kingdom outreach look like interfacing with your local church's kingdom outreach? And also, how do you think through giving globally through your company and also giving globally through your local church?
Through the church. Yeah. We kind of look at the company dollars in a separate bucket. I receive a salary from the company, and I send some of that salary to my local church, and I support some missionaries from my local church on my salary. But the kingdom funding, our church is pretty mission oriented, and so there have been some missions that our church funded that we connected with from that and funded additionally. But I'd say there's not a direct connection between them. And I was on the missions committee at church, but it drove me crazy, and so I said, I ended up not doing that anymore. But we play a kind of a fairly minor role in our church's mission, but we will invite our missions pastor to meet some of the people that we're connected with, and so we do some cross-pollination, but it's not we don't see our church as the primary conduit of the funds. Yeah.
I appreciate what your testimony was in there, and it resonated with me from the marketing piece that you talked about, how you all had just a phone number. So, I'm in Christian radio now, but coming from secular radio and looking at everything was about the dollar, and then to come to Christian radio and get to see that it was, it's such a purpose when we can actually pray with people. We just recently had one of our stations is a not-for-profit, and we have the list of basically call in, and to be able to pray with people and changes what the needs of people are. And I just wondered that when you were starting out with your Christian principles, how much did media, Christian, being associated with other Christian businesses, and as far as your media, people that you work with, play an important role in getting your success going? I'm sure after you get going, word of mouth's great, but what was part of that? Was any of that part of your strategy?
I wouldn't say strategy. I did benefit from it. I listened to Larry Burkett and some of these, and I listened to all kinds of Christian radio back then. We have not done much at all in the U.S. with media. We don't really understand it, and there's others that are funding that, and so we've stayed away from it. We do a fair amount in the media world in the Middle East, North Africa, a little bit in India, but we've done very little in the U.S. We've not been one of our. Everybody is going to ignore 99.9% of the things out there. You just can't do everything. You can't do almost most things. You can't do. You got to pick the things that you feel God's calling you to, and get good at those, and don't be so worried that you're doing nothing for Mozambique. Anybody addressing the typhoon in Mozambique that just hit? We're totally ignoring that. Well, everybody totally ignores most things, and that's okay. That's just part of it. And so don't feel guilty when somebody says, "How come you're not doing something for the homeless here?" Or figure out what God wants you to do and be about it well. But don't just bounce from need to need, because I think that'll be less effective. Yeah.
What are some techniques that you use in order to determine like the cap on your living and lifestyle?
Yeah, great question. We would use the illustration of the Army cook. Okay, would everybody agree that the Army cook should not eat better than the rest of the troops? Did you agree? He shouldn't take all the good food, and he's controlling the food. He's got it in the kitchen. He could keep it, but eventually, if he did that and sent the rice out to the troops and he ate all the meat, eventually the general would not be so pleased with that. I'd say those of us who are in a position to generate money because of the country we live in and the mind that God gave us and the opportunity that He gave us, whatever, should not see that as ours. We shouldn't see that we have any right to consume what we produce any more than the Army cook should, or that the FedEx delivery guy should say that package in the truck. If he took it to his own house and said, it's in my control, I'm going to take it to my house and use it. Hold on a second, that's not yours. And that's how we would see our thinking about our lifestyle. We have no rights. And so we look at setting a lifestyle. We try to set it on a utilitarian. What do we need to function in our society? So we have vehicles, and we have cell phones, and we don't need them. That's not a human need, but it is a functional need to function in our society. We have air conditioning, and we have, we're not. I'd say we want to live a relatively simple life. We would use the illustration of toys and tools. We want to invest in tools that are things that can be used in our life to produce. And toys we would define as things that feed our ego or try to satisfy us with stuff. We don't want to invest in the toys. We want to shun the toys, invest in the tools. And by the way, one person's tool is another person's toy. It's not hard and fast. I mean, somebody may have a Maserati as a tool, and they are intentionally reaching out to a certain group, and they're having an amazing ministry doing that, and to do that, they need a Maserati. For others, that might be a toy. And so it's I don't think there's a list of what your lifestyle should be, and if you do more than the X, then you should, But I think that we should be intentional about it. I think if we do what comes naturally in this area, we will mess up. Naturally, we will flow toward too much consumption, too much entitlement, too much it's mine. And so I think that we should intentionally push the other direction. And it really does help to travel internationally too, and to see how crazy wealthy we are. And poor people here are quite wealthy compared to if you live at the poverty level here, you're way above average in the world. So if you live at half the poverty level, you're above average in the world.
First of all, your story is just amazing. I only know of one other company that had the same fortitude, spiritual fortitude to make the decision about small means as their company continued to grow. But you speak with tremendous wisdom. My question would be, how much time do you donate to, or do you dedicate to prayer in order to
It's a good question. Somebody asked me that maybe 10 years ago. They said, you must have this amazing prayer life. And I had to look at them and say, I don't. And so I've changed that, and I've spent more time in prayer and journaling, and I'm still not good at it. And I still have to have tools to do it because my mind wanders very quickly. I'll start praying, and pretty soon, 2 seconds later, I'm trying to solve the problem that I was praying about, and my mind just, it doesn't focus well. Yeah. So I can't say that I have this, that I'm a great prayer warrior kind of guy, but I am working at it, and so it's not one that has come naturally to me, nor do I think I've got some great insights for people on it. But
Would you say then a lot of the success as your company and your visions expand will be by the people that you surround yourself with?
yes, and a lot of them pray, and better than I do. But yeah, I think any business relates to their people, and God has blessed us with a whole bunch of really talented guys, much smarter than I am and much better, and that's what's made us great. And I think that my lifestyle choices has been attractive to some people. It doesn't repel them. I mean, I think it's nice to live a similar or lower lifestyle to a lot of the other guys at work. A lot of the guys that are running my cranes have probably a more lucrative lifestyle than I do. And so there's not a barrier that comes from that. And I think about these African dictators that steal billions and live this crazy life, and I'm thinking, why do you do that? I mean, what benefit is it? But I think the same for the business guy that's generating a lot of money and just seeing and just consuming it in front of people. And they have the right to do it. I mean, I'm a capitalist, and I'd say they have every right to do it. But as a believer, I don't understand why they would want to do it. Why, it just doesn't seem like the benefit nearly. It just doesn't seem like there's enough benefit in it. It seems like it's more harm than good. I don't know if I answered your question, though.
No, you did.
Okay.
Just something that reflects is when a fellow by the name of Reinhard Bonnke, when he started doing ministry in Africa, he had amazing things on the surface, and yet the ministry was failing. And God gave him a vision and said, your ministry is like a fully fortified battleship, but it's stuck on sand. And the buoyancy that would get that ship to go was the prayers of the intercessory team of prayer, and they changed their whole focus, and they would send in intercessory prayer people prior to and then after, their ministry, their evangelism and outreaches and stuff, and their ministry just took off. So even if it's not you directly, and that's
we should do more of that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
My mind's going doing
Yeah.
It's more on the spiritual side. I'd like to talk to you further.
Yeah. Excellent. Yes, sir.
With generational business, how do you handle succession planning with your children and or your nieces and nephews with your brother?
Yeah. I mean, we don't own the business now, and so they won't own the business either. We would invite them to join the company if they want to work hard and want to be part of what the company's doing. Probably the next leader of the company, if I got hit by a truck tomorrow, the next leader wouldn't have my last name. I don't see that my kids have a birthright to the business. So I think that if they want to join the stewardship of the business, that is they're invited but not expected to do that. Right now, one of my kids works in the business, and there's probably one more that might down the road. I'd say none of my brother's kids will. They're not being excluded, but they're not being brought in artificially either. And so if they would be good at it, and we would invite them to do it, but not expect them to. Yeah.
Just to go along with that, if you could share, Stanky, first, what effect has it had on, you said you have 6 kids?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and maybe your brother's kids as well, in their spiritual walk. Are they walking with Christ, or some, as we see a lot, going away?
Yeah.
What do y'all see?
I think, I don't think there's been any hindrance to our lifestyle choices that have hurt my kids in that respect. 4 of my 6 kids are walking with the Lord. I'd say 2 are not. Those 2 would be, I wouldn't be sure that they're not, but that would be my suspicion. My brother's kids, I'm not really sure. My brother is a genius guy, mechanical genius kind of guy, but interpersonally he's had some short suits, and he went through a divorce, and so he's somewhat estranged from his kids, and so I don't really know him. And so it's been kind of a sad story there, but yeah, my kids are. I don't think that. I think there's no. I want to say, feeling of they got ripped off or that they're resentful about anything. But a couple of them, I think, are still trying to figure out their faith, and I wouldn't be confident that they are believers at this point. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Dude, I was going to look these questions about your children. Has any of them got deep into the ministry out of the 6 of them? Did any of them travel around and work with you on going abroad around the world and everything?
Yeah, we took them all from the time they were really little. I mean, our first trip we took with our oldest son when he was 6 months old, and we went to China and Philippines and Korea, and I didn't think we should bring him, but my wife said, no, we need to bring him. I mean, he was 6 months old. Well, we found that it was really better than we imagined. You know, obviously it didn't have a life change on him, but when you travel somewhere and you're trying to build up a relationship and you bring your wife with you, it changes the dynamic a lot. If you bring your 6-month-old kid with you, that really changes the dynamic. And so when we went to India, we trooped across India with 4 small children, or some of them were medium, you know, some of them were maybe 10 or 11. And I go back to India now, and people still remember us coming across India with our kids, you know, 20-something years ago. But I think, and our kids, the further older they got, the more they were impacted by it. And I think it's one of those investments that we have decided to make that we would consider a tool, is to take our kids to see some of this ministry that's going on. So yeah, they've been quite involved. Last one. I think we're down to, or maybe got time for one more. Go ahead.
You said your children were impacted by that trip. Can you explain the impact that would have had versus the more common, hey, let's go to Disney, because that's clearly more meaningful. Just curious how that impacted them.
Well, they're seeing people that are being persecuted. They're seeing people that are desperately poor relative to anything they would see in Memphis. Poor and content and joyful. They're seeing believers who are doing hard things in hard places over a long period of time. So, I mean, I think it's just having conversations with people that are really different than them. So, I mean, I think in all kind of ways I don't even think they could necessarily line them out for you, the different impacts, but I just think that exposure to other cultures, I think, is a real help. And I think it's, I think they all see it as something that's enriched their life. They have a different view of the world because they've seen things that a lot of people have never seen. All right, sorry for... Good job.
Our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that you direct our steps. And Lord, we pray that today that you will put forth the questions that are most beneficial to the most amount of people in the room here today. You know each of our needs individually, you know our needs collectively, and you direct our steps. And so we thank you for that, for directing our steps day after day, week after week, month after month. Help us to see where you lead us. We give this time to you and pray your blessings to each person. In Jesus' name, amen. Alan?
All right. Well, you guys have heard my story, and I'm not going to expound on anything, but what would you guys like to talk more about? Somebody want to straighten me out or give me some, or what do you want to hear more about, or questions that you have? Let's just take some time and be together. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to start. I'm Sharon Allware. I'm with Goodwill. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Goodwill.
Okay.
And so what I do is I place people in jobs. So if people want to work into our Goodwill stores, we put them to work in our Goodwill stores. Okay. There's always a story of Goodwill, and the story is, people donate, people shop. Those proceeds, the money goes towards putting people to work. Okay. So, and that's what I do. That's what we do with a lot of other things about teaching them soft skills. We have career coaches on site and everything. But I know unemployment is at its lowest, especially here in, Louisville, Kentucky. So what we have left is the population, pretty much people with felonies, okay, that are in desperate need of jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for employers that believe in second chances, that want to give our people a second chance. And we have some, but we don't have a lot. So what can we do to, maybe talk to the employers or, soften the heart or, different things? Because we're going to have to. A lot of employers are just, they'll say a case-by-case basis, but it doesn't really happen. But when they do say we don't care what they've done and fire them, do you have any suggestions?
I do. We faced the same thing. We saw it as a need. We tried to employ guys coming out of prison. We had about a 0 success rate on it. Got kind of frustrated. This was many years ago. Met with an older, kind of wiser guy, and he said, Alan, these guys they don't need a chance. They need some intensive care. It's not a matter of just giving them an opportunity, and it's beyond that. And we saw that continual failure. A lot of these guys have lived a life that doesn't have much success to it, and so we set up a program where we do intensive care for guys, and so it's an on-the-job training. The idea not for them to come work in our company long term. Some do, but mostly not. But to get 6 months of on-the-job training and intensive care. And then to roll that out, we had the other thing that was frustrating, we did this for about 25 years, and we had problems we tried to replicate it, and we couldn't get it replicated. And the secret sauce now that we've kind of broken through and now we have it replicated has been having these, what we call shepherds, that would take 6 of these people and go to a company and say, I'll look after the headaches associated with these people, and I will build into them. You pay us X dollars an hour for these 6 guys to work, and we'll give you the shepherd thrown in on the deal, so to speak. And it's not a total economic. People have to have some interest in life change to pay that amount of money, but if they are willing to do it, we found some good success in being able to replicate that and get groups of guys that are going and with a shepherd looking after them every day. Because little minor things trip people up, and they lose their jobs for all of silly reasons, and all of a sudden the employer says, well, I tried, but it didn't work. And what I'd say is, without intensive care, you're really not trying. We got to find intensive care for these guys to get them past that point to convert them into employable, is sort of the terminology we would use. And then after they're employable, if they're working at our company, we tend to have them go work somewhere else. So we may teach them to weld, but also teach them to come to work and teach them other soft skill type things, and then have them go work at another weld shop, and we can bring in another person. So it's something we've been doing for a long time. There's plenty of failure in that. It doesn't work all the time, but we found that having a shepherd is a key to making that continue to work, and a key to making companies say, yeah, I'll try it, because correctly they're looking at it and think, this is going to be a hassle if I hire this person. This is the last person I would want to hire from looking through resumes. But I also want to contribute, what's the alternative? If that person doesn't get a job, what's the alternative? And they're a mess. And so, I look at them kind of in the widows and orphans of this world, that we need to be doing something to help. And so anyway, those are our thoughts.
How do you take your faith to your employees?
Overtly, intentionally. What we found is, as long as you tell people up front who you are and what you're doing, there's not a problem sharing your faith. I do a monthly message to the company that goes, it's taped and goes out on the internet, whatever, and probably 3 or 4 times a year, I'll present the gospel in that. I'll find a reason to present the gospel in that time. We encourage people at work to share their faith. We invite them to go to marriage conferences that are put on by Christian groups, and we'll pay for it, and you can go have a great weekend marriage conference or counseling session, or there's a thing called Outback, which is a place where you can take your father-daughter or father-son that are overtly Christian. People get worried that people will be offended by it, and very few are offended, and as long as you've told them up front who you are and what you're doing and made no bones about it, then they really don't have any right to be offended. We pray before company meetings. We have devotionals. And we would say, if you don't want to pray, that's fine. Just, you can step out if you want to, or you can not come to the devotional if you want to. No problem. But would also say, it doesn't hurt you to get exposed to another point of view. I listen to NPR sometimes on the way in, or listen to, a radical radio station of people that think really differently than me, to get exposed to different views. And I said, it doesn't hurt you to get exposed to another view. And nobody's going to push you into doing anything, but why not listen? So with that, and we've had a few guys that got mad, and very few though. I mean, I think for the most part, it's been very minor. And
do you try to support them in Christian service in some way, or missions trips, or local ministry volunteer projects? We do,
yeah. So we try to have an impact in every city where we have operations, and we encourage them to take time to go volunteer. We ask them to help us allocate some of the funding through we put a little bit in everybody's account, and on a thing called contribute, and they can put money in, and if they go volunteer, we'll put more money in for them. And so we really want to try to get maximum involvement, and that would include non-believers. That would be anybody who was interested. And then the larger dollars that we're delegating, that we're distributing, is done by a smaller group, and a person wouldn't absolutely have to be a believer, but it's all very overtly Christian, and so they tend to self-select. That it's almost everybody who participates in that is a believer. But yeah, so we. Yeah.
Can you share some of the specifics about governance guidelines that are in place for that?
Sure. The company is owned by the National Christian Foundation, 99% of it. 1% is owned by a voting trust that, of which currently I'm the trustee of the voting trust. And if I get hit by a truck, right now there's a board of advisors that will become the board of trustees that will then basically control the company. And so picking that group of people was very important, and how it perpetuates was very important. So that's basically our ownership structure. It's we're not the owners, but we're the stewards, and we can transfer that stewardship to a management team or to another generation with no cost, without the estate planning, estate tax issues. We can also transfer it without the dangerous, money's dangerous, and lots of money is more dangerous. And so we can transfer the stewardship of the company to a variety of people down the line without having to transfer the value. And so right now, if I got hit by a truck tomorrow, the guy who would lead the company doesn't have my last name. He's not one of my kids. And it may be somewhere down the road. One of my children is involved in the business, but he's not prepared to do such a thing. So we don't see it as a birthright for our kids to run the company. We see it as we invite them, but we don't expect them to join the company, but only invite them if they want to work hard and be good. And so, but we think that the way it's set up. I mean, I look at how we do, and some people think, "Man, you're radical. This is crazy." And I think it just seems like it makes sense to me. It's really easy, and the transition will be so much easier, and the company can go on and continue to be a ministry unto itself, and continue to generate money after I'm gone. Or the company could get sold, and if the company gets sold, my kids would have no temptation to sell the company and cash out and live large. I mean, because when the company is sold, they wouldn't get anything. The money would all go into a ministry fund because the ministry owns it, and so they're invited to be stewards. They're not owners. They wouldn't be owners in the future.
Have you seen that model or replicated in other companies?
A few, and I think it's becoming more. I think people are thinking about it more. I think there's sort of a natural bent toward transfer things to your children, even to their detriment, even if they're not very good at it. There's just sort of a natural tendency of, this is mine, I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to transfer it to my kids. I think people more and more are seeing, there's been a whole string of I don't want to call them horror stories, but stories where that didn't work out very well. And I think more and more people are thinking, yeah, this is an alternative. So as I talk to people about it, some people are offended by the thought of what we've done, but a whole lot are thinking, yeah, this is not a bad idea. And I know a couple others that have done something very similar, and I think more and more people are giving away chunks of their business. And even if they don't, a lot of times the exit is sell your business and then give away the money. And a lot of people are doing that too. And that's another alternative that is, but there's ways when you're selling your business, there's great ways of doing that to avoid huge amounts of taxes and have the money flow to the kingdom. And so I think there's better and better methods of doing that too. So, I mean, it's still not the norm, but I think it's becoming more popular.
How do you make decisions? It sounds like you guys give a lot away to various ministries, but I imagine you also have to reinvest capital back into your business to keep it healthy and growing.
Yeah.
What's your decision-making process look like for figuring out how much to reinvest versus take out of the company to other ministries?
It's a great question, and it's when we started, we're a very capital-intensive business. We got our equipment's expensive. We decided that we were going to give away 50% and reinvest 50%, and that really came from the fact that the 50% was tax deductible. Your first 50%, if you're making a lot of money, you need to give away 50% because, it's a huge tax deduction. Uncle Sam is subsidizing your gift to the tune of like 45% or something. So if you keep it, you're going to pay huge taxes. If you give it away, you don't pay taxes. So we would actually go out and borrow money some years so that we could give 50% of our income if we needed to from a cash flow standpoint. So 50% was our number. We basically have stuck with that. Now that we're owned by a charity, it's no longer the same dynamic. Basically, we get the deduction whether we give away money or not, but we still try to send out 50% of our income each year and then take the other 50% and use it to grow the business.
The employees that were involved in deciding how to appropriate those ministry funds, are they involved in figuring out some of the reinvestment decisions too, or are those separate things?
Well, they're separate, but every branch figures out their own reinvestment, and we approve it. So that's more of a management of each operation would figure out what equipment they need, and we would, a group of senior leaders would then approve that or not. But those primary decisions would be made at the branch levels. The funding decisions are made by sort of a band of volunteers that say, I'm willing to participate in this program. Nobody does it full time. Nobody's paid to do that. They just say, I'm willing to spend some of my time doing the research and learning and being a student of that and helping create a strategy toward giving. And so there's about 80 of us that are doing that. Yes, sir.
So Alan, you spoke about setting a cap on your lifestyle. And so for someone that you were talking or coaching through that process, what advice would you give? What would you guide them? How would you guide them through that process?
I'd start with probably a couple of primary things. First, I would say unlink your income and your consumption. Ignore the link there. Assume that there's no link, that you're not entitled to what earn. Sorry about that. I should turn this thing off. I'll turn this thing off. So don't look at it like how much am I earning? I'm entitled to all that. So the illustration we use would be the Army cook. I think everybody would agree that the Army cook shouldn't eat better than the rest of the troops. You guys agree? He shouldn't keep all the good food and send out the rice and beans to the troops. I mean, he has the control to do that. I think those of us who are in a position to generate money because of the country we were born in and the family we were born in and the education we got and the brain that God gave us and whatever, we're in a position to generate money. We shouldn't see that as a right to consume that. We should see that as a part of our contribution to the body of Christ. And everybody has different gifts, different skills. We should be using our skills and gifts. And I think using our skills and gifts to create value for a customer and convert that value into profit can be a significant chunk of our contribution to the body. What we need to then do is say, that's not my money. All this is God. Everything I have is God's money. How much of it should I be consuming? How much of it should I be investing or sending out? So to look at a lifestyle as what is it that I need to function in my society and to be productive? And that'll be different. The cook is going to need some special equipment, to do that and to do what he does. And in our company, we need special equipment to do it. And individuals need, you don't need one of these, but it sure is a good tool it helps. And so we would say when we start thinking about spending money, we talk about tools and toys. We would say tools are something you invest in to give utility, to help you do what you do and can be able to produce more. A toy is something that you get to feed your ego or to, I guess, to feed your ego. So something that you're thinking that this thing, if I can get this thing, it will make me happy. And so I'm going to get it because I want to feed my ego. I would say shun the toys, invest in the tools. It would be our concept there as far as setting lifestyle. And I think that the other thing I'd say is do it on purpose. We are naturally, if you do what comes naturally in this area and in other areas, you're going to mess up. And especially in this area of money. That's why Jesus talked about it so much. He talked about money more than anything else because we are naturally going to not do the right thing. And so be intentional about looking at things and challenging yourself and even putting accountability into your life. I mentioned that in the talk. So that you can weather this thing. Because our enemy uses money. He said you can't serve God in money. And it's a trap in our society. I mean, we live in this crazy wealthy society. I mean, people who are poor here live so much better than kings lived a couple hundred years ago. I mean, and yet pretty much everybody thinks I don't have enough, and it's just so wrong. So anyway, I think as you're thinking about lifestyle, think I'm not entitled to anything. What do I need to function? Let me get the tools I need to function, and let me create as much as I can create in terms of value, in terms of production. It doesn't have to be money, and then use the delta to help others. And I see that not only as I think a way that's honoring to God, but I think it's also a lot more fun than the toys. More fulfilling, I should say, than the toys.
How do you handle disagreement, or have you had any disagreement walking down that road in setting the lifestyle that you have within your family or outside?
Yeah, I mean, with our kids, we just kind of took the tack that they're kids and it's not their call, and so we didn't do a lot of negotiation there. We just said this is what we're doing, and this is so. My wife and I negotiate some, and we for the home that we live in, I would say we live in a home that's more expensive than I would have picked. I'd say that was sort of a negotiation. But I look at a home quite different than I would look at a vehicle or something. You know, a home's going to appreciate in value. It's somewhat of an investment, so I'm okay with it. You know, we've never paid more than $10,000 for a vehicle. You know, so that's vehicles go down in value drastically, and so we always buy used vehicles, and you know, so those are just some of the. But there's definitely negotiation with Catherine and I, and not with the kids so much, but yeah.
Such a large nationwide company, come across employees that struggle with substance abuse disorder, and if so, do you work with employee assistance? You have that within your business?
Yeah, we do. It really depends. If a guy's coming in for pre-employment, we typically don't employ them, or we don't. You know, had a guy recently came in, busted on his pre-employment test. The guy who was going to be his boss told him, "Hey, you busted on the drug test." The guy was devastated. His wife was going to be furious, whatever. The guy led him to the Lord in the process, and then so the guy left saying, "Man, this is the greatest day of my life. You know, I don't have a job, but I've got the Lord." So it doesn't always happen that way. A whole lot of them don't happen that way, and a whole lot of guys, when they get hooked on the wrong kind of drugs, it just, you know, we give them multiple opportunities and put them through treatments, and you know, there's limits. You know, after 3 or 4 times, it's like, you know, you're gonna have to go somewhere else and beat this one. But you know, so we do try, and with some reasonable success, we drug test, and that helps keep people honest a little bit. But I can't say that we've had 100% success in that. You know, we've had a lot of guys that had to leave the company because of substance abuse. So.
How do you go about picking a recovery center? Is it usually faith-based?
It varies, and it's somewhat dependent on the individual and what they're willing to do, and so it's not, and it really varies from branch to branch too. What's available there and what the guys there are willing to go research and do. I mean, some branches, frankly, they would just let them go. Other branches would look around and try to find something. And that's what we're hoping to do more at the branches, is have care teams that have a system in place for counseling and for substance abuse issues. But it's, you know, I'd say we're only medium at it right now.
Alan, you talked about personal accountability. What's that look like?
Well, it was really giving people permission by telling them, hey, if you join our business, the fruits of your labor, fellow believer, are going to go to the kingdom. And my lifestyle is capped, and here's my lifestyle. And please feel free to call me into account if you see me changing my lifestyle. If I start consuming more of this than I should, you're free to call me to account. And once you've told 3 or 4 guys that, who are seeing you every day, it's a little hard to go back, you know. And we don't want to go back, but there's a human nature that pulls you back. We found it to be really helpful to have a commitment, a verbal commitment to other people that we said, please watch me and please hold me to account. And and I have a guy that I walk with every Saturday morning, and if I'm gonna spend a lot of money on something, he and I talk about it beforehand. So that's an overt accountability partner, and we've been walking for the last 10 years every Saturday morning, and it's been a wonderful. Before that, I didn't really have a best friend, and I would have told you should have a relationship like this, but I didn't have one. And about 10 years ago, I connected with this guy, and it's been a great accountability for me. But before that, it was the guys at work who were believers that we said, this is our commitment. And it really helped both my brother and I as we went through the years to say, we can't backpedal on this. We've told these people this. So it took away the temptation to backpedal.
Can you talk a little bit about the business side of the business, where you, how did you take it from being a local mom and pop kind of rigging company to being, it looks like from the video you guys are doing some pretty awesome projects.
Cool stuff, yeah. I mean, God did it, and we were along for the ride, but we were working hard to try to, at first I was semi-workaholic. I mean, first year when my parents were running the business, they left, and so I was out running cranes during the day and doing the books at night and working 100-hour weeks probably for the first year, and realized that's not a good way to live life, and modified it. But my point is we work hard at doing it, and we finding the right people that you can bring into your organization that are correctly motivated and will stick around for a long time has been the key, I think, to us being able to be successful. And so we have a lot of guys that have come with a mixed purpose of, I want to be good at this business, and I like the kingdom elements of this business, and they tend to stay. And so a lot of those guys have been here for 15, 20 years, and they're smarter than I am and more talented, and they have been a key to why we've been able to continue to grow. And we could be twice as big if we had twice as many good guys and good people. So we're constantly looking for the right guys to join our organization, and then the opportunities are everywhere. It's a question of how much talent that you can bring in. And we've done a lot of acquisitions, and some of those come with talent, and some of those come with baggage and problems. And so we've worked through how to instill culture into a new organization, and those are all kind of elements that you need to have if you're going to continue to grow. Our industry is somewhat localized because moving the equipment is expensive, and so you need to have local presences. And so we've done that through acquisition, through developing leaders and sending them out, giving people opportunities, rewarding them when they succeed. I'd say those are some of the key elements. Yeah.
Where did you and your brother come to this camping your lifestyle? Simply from reading the Bible, or did you get exposed to that concept in some other channels? Or have you heard of that in other channels?
I read a book by a guy named Ron Sider when I was in college. It's called Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger, and it's a fairly liberal book, but it was pretty compelling to me. He talked about a graduated tithe, where 10% is minimum, but once you get up to a certain amount of income, you should make it 15%, and on up to 100% in his analysis over time. And he was proposing that as an alternative for people that have excess income. And I looked at that and I thought, that makes sense. I like that. So it was sort of that book that caused me to start thinking about that. And then the warnings in Scripture that sort of accented it and made me think, I need something to make it to protect us from that kind of problem. So I think those were kind of the two influences that just all the verses. There were so many verses in Scripture that said, be careful, watch out, this is dangerous stuff. And so and one of the things my brother and I had to just talk about is what happens if we're successful? And I think success is much more dangerous than failure. I mean, I think failure, you get on with it. Success, it can eat you alive. And one of the secrets in our company, it's almost ironic, has been the success of our competitors, and then they blow themselves up, but with the success that they've had. And we have one right now that's in bankruptcy, and good company, good guy, knows what he's doing, but he just blew himself up when he had success. And toys, and leave one wife, get a new one, and just on and on. And if our competitors didn't blow themselves up, we wouldn't be nearly as successful. And, I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
So
Does that philosophy filter down to compensation committee, or how do you go about, I mean, because you're in what, 40 cities, 40 some cities? So how do you go about that process of in your management and compensation structure?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we pay market wages.
Okay.
Key leaders, we tend to be a little lower on current cash. So, the salary and bonus tends to be maybe lower than the market, and we do a lot with deferred compensation that ties to people staying for a long period of time. So that's been our philosophy. My salary is one that I set, and so right now my salary is going down substantially because my need is lower. But I don't do that with the rest of the group. So the rest of the group, we feel like we're transferring the stewardship to them, and some of them are, would live differently than I would, and we would say that we pay market wages for the different positions, and then let people do what they're going to do. But my position, I base the salary more on my need. So.
Have you ever been in a situation where you really struggled to give that 50% away?
Not emotionally. I mean, there was a few times we had a bad year, and it was a little bit more difficult financially. And there may have even been a year or two we didn't make it. We have debt, and so they had debt covenants, and there may have been a year or two we didn't get there because of our debt covenants. I remember one year when the hurricane hit and Katrina hit, they had allowed you to give away an unlimited. You could give away 100% of your income and write it off that one year, and we gave away I think 70% that year because our debt covenant stopped us from giving away 100. But as far as a struggle, it's I mean, we've had struggles in business, but I'd say it's never been a struggle to give away the 50%. If we didn't do it, it was only because we were capped because of banking restrictions.
Did you start that from the beginning?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Which is easier than starting it later. But it's start where you are. I mean, I think we all are where we are, and we are responsible for what we're responsible for, and so you just start where you are. I do like talking to younger kids about this, kids coming out of college, because it's a little bit easier before you have the disease. The inoculation is easier than the surgery, so to speak. And so for some people, it's really to change their lifestyle downward affects their psyche, or it's a hard thing. And I still recommend it, but I recognize it as being harder later. Yeah. A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think, as I said in the other talk, all of us are totally neglecting 99.9% of the need. I mean, who's doing anything right now in Mozambique? Anybody? Maybe somebody would be, but you're probably not doing. If you're doing that, you're probably not doing anything in Turkey. You're neglecting everything, and there's 80 million people or whatever, 170, whatever's in Turkey. That were totally neglected. My point being, any choice you make is going to preclude you from doing other things. And so, yeah, I'm doing nothing to reach people at the country club because I'm not at the country club. I'm doing nothing to reach people kind of in the jet-setting crowd because I'm not. And I'm not. I mean, I think it would be wonderful for somebody to say that is my ministry. I'm totally neglecting that. It would be great for others to say that I feel God's calling me to have those kind of clothes and that kind of lifestyle so that I can reach those people for the Lord. And if that's their mind, then those are tools to me for them, and go for it. I mean, you just got to check your heart and make sure that that's your motive and that's what you're attempting to do and that you're doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know, this isn't great, but how did you go from the 100-hour work weeks to less than 100-hour work weeks? I mean, what kind of did that? I need to be successful to maybe, I don't know, I need to take care of my family, it doesn't matter as much. What was the transition there for you?
I mean, part of it was my wife saying, I ain't liking this. This is rough. This is not what I signed up for. And I, I hardly even noticed. I mean, it wasn't like I was slaving. I mean, I liked it. It was fun. But I had to understand that my wife had needs as well, and we didn't have children at that time, so that was a little bit easier. But I started hiring guys to help, and that's how it evolved. Is to not only did it keep me from having to work 100-hour weeks, it also gave us a bunch of more talent into the organization, and so delegating is something I've always been able to do, and sort of letting people do their thing, and that's what's kept me from having to be Superman and working 100 hours a week. I think I don't think anybody can live like that in a permanent way anyway. So probably if I worked a little less, things might even be better. So yeah.
So in your business, you're in a competitive bid strategy most often, right? Mm-hmm. So in that, have you found that your business philosophy has been embraced by the people that are getting the bids and your customers?
No. I mean, we don't lead with it at all. I mean, if you went on our website, you wouldn't see it. As far as buy from us because we're doing great things in India. We don't lead from that at all. Our marketing approach would be almost completely secular. I mean, we do send out a Christmas card that has a message to it. And we do some things, but it would not be part of our strategy to try to leverage that. I mean, we don't even publicize it much. A lot of companies that are doing a fraction of what we're doing make a big deal out of what they're doing, and we just don't do that.
Do you have a favorite operation of ministry that you've been involved with? You say, you know what, this dovetailed with our business in the rigging and all that you do. Just it was a powerful thing. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Not from a business, not from a physical standpoint. I mean, we like micro enterprise, and Hope International is a group that we support heavily for that, because we like the idea of giving people a chance, not a handout, and so we like the concept of micro enterprise, and I'd say that's probably the closest. Water wells was another one that has some equipment elements to it, and we trained some guys and became sort of semi-staff on doing some water wells at one point, and so we've done a little bit of that, but not so much. We don't do much in the way, we don't do buildings, and we don't support missionaries, which is what everybody thinks about when they think about missions. 95% of our funding goes internationally, but not through those two means. And so we're focused more. I'd say our business is more, the success of our business is not the cool equipment, it's the leadership development. And the success of ministries is not a building, but leadership development. So we would say trying to develop people, evangelize them, disciple them, and develop the leaders are the primary elements that we would be aiming for. Yes, sir.
I was in the other session and ours got over early. Now I can ask something I have some time to do. So you're an engineer. God built you that way and everything, but you're not engineering anymore. You're, when you describe out of your heart what you really are doing.
Now, I'm probably doing 20% engineering. I still do the R&D stuff, and I still get to do that. I'm kind of a deal maker. Acquisitions are some of the things that I do. Most of the time I spend with my senior leaders trying to develop them and try to understand them and get them equipped to do what they do. But But I do get to do some engineering still. I still like it, and I still every now and then get to run a crane, but not very often. But yeah.
So the way you describe yourself is that the interior of how God made you is an engineer. You're still thinking in those ways. That's a gift. That's not necessarily a task.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm interested in is how people use their gifts in various ways.
Yes.
Right? And I don't need a long thing, but how does the way God made you work not only for what you used to get to do more, which is drive cranes and do engineering, into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think God gave me a knack for that as well. And when I was a little kid, I was always the guy that sold the most light bulbs or did just kind of have a competitive drive as well. And so I think God uses those things. Each of us has our own skills and gifts, and I think that we should esteem each of those skills and gifts, especially to the degree that they're being exercised for the kingdom. We should esteem them. And I do wish that, I said in the last session, I wish that churches would ordain, I don't know if ordaine's the right word, commission business guys. Yeah, send out business. We send out missionaries, and if you're a doctor, that's sort of cool, but if you're a business guy, that's kind of like you're a little bit of a second-class citizen, and more so in some other parts of the world where they're seen more as suspect. I think we should esteem our military. We should esteem our teachers. We should esteem our construction workers that are doing what they do. We should esteem our business guys. They're all using their, and especially to the degree that they're using their skills and gifts for the kingdom, and they're using their platform as a ministry platform. That's the right hand, the nose and the foot and the parts of the body working together, I think is a powerful thing. And we should each play our part. And the fact that we've earned enough money so we don't have any more need doesn't mean you should stop producing money. Continue to produce way beyond what you need, way beyond what you need, and use it for the kingdom. Crank out, if you're, within the limits of a balanced life, etc., but be excellent at what you do, create value, and if you're in ministry, create a lot of good ministry. If you're a teacher, create amazingly good students. If you're a business guy, make a pile of money, legitimately and with respect to people, etc., but don't stop making money, and don't retire, so to speak, when you have enough. Keep going and use the delta to help others. Keep your gifts exercised.
So what's your perspective on retirement?
I don't see it in the Bible. Retirement. I think there'll be a time when my body or my mind will slow down and will, but there's no allure to me to retiring in a I think my production might change. I might start producing something else, but to go into a mode of self-absorption and not continuing to use my skills and gifts for the kingdom, I don't see it. I don't see why. I don't think it would make you more happy. I don't think it would be. I don't see any. There's no appeal to me in retirement if retirement means exiting productive ministry. But I think there will come a time when your mind and body will limit what you can do, and then you're limited, and you just have a limited impact. But I think we should still keep impacting as much as we can.
Anyone, one last question?
Well, say
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alan.